want to touch on 1982, as you said before I stopped you the first time. And like you said, it was, I don't want to tell the story because they're your words and I want you to share them. So if you wouldn't mind picking off in 1982 or how you...
Yeah, big part of my life. Very, very difficult part of it, as I said. And this, it affected everything that I did all the way through, even to today, how things, I look at life and things that you've got to do and bits and pieces. I said 1982, yeah, my brother's got a TZ 750, a TZ 500, I'd gone to Donington, beat some of the guy Bob Smith that was the current British champion, Steve Parrish that was Sheen's teammate, Keith Ewan, world front runner, as I said, Wayne Gardner, a lot of the Americans that came over. Yeah, as he said, and he's running at the front end of that. So Sheen is in the latter stages of his career, and as I said, Douglas is just starting to make a name for himself on the British Championship scene and some of the internationals and winning some very, very big races. Sponsored by Alan Duffus at the time. We both were. And I would go and do the support races either on a TZ125 Yamaha or a 250. And back in the day, no electronics with scanning and signing on or anything, but you had to be 18 years old to be able to race at international level. And again, a bit of a dodge went on here, where Douglas would go and sign on, and then 10 minutes later, I would go back in and sign on with his race license. Now, I had a race license of my own, but I wasn't 18, and technically I wasn't really eligible to race, but I would go and do the international races with him and just sign on as him. But they had my name down in the program as me, but somehow or another, as I said, they never actually put the two together. So I did several races before I was 18 when I probably shouldn't have done, but good experience. You can't get away with that now, but I think, as I said, I was finishing within the top 10. I was there or thereabouts, so I wasn't holding people up or making rookie silly mistakes in it where I would stand out in the crowd. But just that year, things were starting to evolve. Some of the bigger teams were starting to look at what Douglas was doing, and Alan Duffus had took on the ownership and started to run Knockhill and decided to do a reverse direction race at Knockhill. Changed the circuit, and whatever happened on that day, we still really don't know. Stuart Burkhart was the other guy's name. His bike would not start. He pushed it down pit lane, pushed it out onto the circuit, and there's a blend line, they call it, which you should never cross, which basically keeps you safe, keeps you over the right-hand side of the circuit. But he crossed it and he shoved the bike straight over the wrong side of a blind hill, and unfortunately Douglas was coming up the hill from the other side, flat on the tank, 150, 160 mile an hour, and collected Stuart Burkhart slap in the middle of the circuit.
Right.
The absolute carnage it literally looked like a bomb had gone off, with just bits of bike and all over the place, and it was and Stuart died at the scene instantly, just with his injuries. Douglas, after what seemed like an eternity at the circuit, a catalogue of disasters at the circuit where the ambulance wasn't taxed, MOT'd, insured. It didn't want to drive out onto the road to take him down to the hospital. The oxygen cylinders in the ambulance didn't work. We had friends running around the paddock trying to open up the oxygen in the ambulance with welding spanners, and it was just unbelievable. The paramedics couldn't get his helmet off. He was choking. I ended up having to take his helmet off him at the scene. My dad's there wandering around the pits, not really knowing what's going on, and obviously completely knew that something horrendous was going on, but not quite aware of it all. And Douglas ended up in the Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. After about a week with serious head injuries, started to make a bit of progress. They started to take him out of the induced coma that he was in. But something went wrong. We really don't know what, but he took a turn for the worse and never really recovered from that. So over the next 2 years, just gradually deteriorated. And this is what I was saying earlier about the mindset and having the ability to switch off from things. Now, it says on the ticket, and when you sign on and you get a pass at the gate and before you go out onto the circuit, there's bloody great big signs everywhere that says motorcycle racing is dangerous. I know it's dangerous. We had travelled many as 1,000 miles together in vans. We had seen various other accidents. I think in the late 70s, early 80s, the attrition rate of riders was quite high. And you just think, why do people go out and do that? We do. It's just what we do. And there was lots of discussions on what if something happens, and etc., and what would you do if you're hurt, or what would you do if you're hurt, etc. So we had both said, listen, just do what you think is right, what you want to do. If you want to carry on, you carry on. And so that I made a decision. I didn't race the next weekend, which was at Ingliston in Edinburgh, which is a round of the Scottish Championship, and I didn't go and race there. But 2 weekends after that was East Fortune, and I decided that I was going to go back and race. So I did, and won the 125 race, and I thought, yeah, that was the right thing to do. But been able to switch everything off, because it was very, very difficult, all very raw at that period of time. So managed to make it to the end of the season. Now, I had touched on, I was good friends with Steve Hislop, but probably better friends with his younger brother, who was Gary. And Gary and I had teamed up, and we went and raced in Ireland together and did a few other big races together. Now, I went off to Donington at the end of the year in October to do a round of what was the Marlborough Clubman's Series, which was the biggest club series in the UK, and fell off, landed on my shoulder, dislocated my shoulder, broke my wrist and whatever. But as I said, yeah, got away with it. Gary decided that he had been leading the Silith Club Championship, went to Silith, he fell off, landed on his head. Unfortunately, the bike spun round and hit him, and he was killed outright at the scene. Wow. So, and Jock Taylor, who was world sidecar champion in 1982, as well as, I think, second cousin, or there's a relationship in there somewhere along the line. And he had gone to Imatra in Finland, and was killed at Finland. So 1982 was not a good year for sure within the bike race world. So 1983, I decided to carry on, and I had thought, so Alan Duffus, I think, was very, very upset by the whole thing, blamed himself for it, for providing the bikes, providing the circuit. I look back on it, it was nothing more than a bizarre chain of events that he could have stepped off the road and been hit by a bus. And for whatever happened, Stuart Birkett, the bike not starting, why he pushed the thing to the wrong side of the line, what the marshal was doing to let him out, why they changed the circuit direction. As I said, too many ifs and buts. It's just one of these things that happened. And would you have said, is it because we were motor racing? No, I can rationalise it and go, do you know what? You could have been hit by a brick dropping off a building. It was bizarre. It was so bizarre as that. It wasn't anything to do with the fact that we were motor racing. It was just a bizarre chain of events, and that's what happened. So 1983, started to look at what it was I was going to do. I still had the 125 Yamaha. Along came Davy Christie, who had said, I've got a spare bike. And he gave me a 350 Yamaha. So in 1983, whilst I can only describe as watching my brother slowly die, I won the 125 and 350 Scottish Championships.
Simultaneously?
Yes, in the same year. Yeah. And there was all sorts of things going on. And I remember one of the races, it might have been in 84 by this time, but I was certainly vying with Howard Selby for the Scottish 350 Championship.
Mm-hmm.
And we were tied on points going into the second last round. And he went on to be European champion and all sorts. As I said, Howard, fantastic career that he had. But I'm racing it against him in the 1980s. And I was sitting on the bike at East Fortune on the dummy grid, all ready to go out to sort of do battle for the Scottish Championship. And this unknown girl comes up to me and says, "Oh, well, good luck, Roddy. Hope you do well. It's an awful shame about your brother, isn't it?" And I'm sitting there on the grid just before I went out. And the guy that was mechanicking for me at the time, Hamish, I just handed him the bike and kind of just wandered off and I don't know, I just had a serious word with myself in my helmet, and had just as he said, sometimes he said, take a breath, get a grip, and as I said, put the monkey back in its box.
The chimp back in its box, yeah.
It was, yeah, because it was out screaming, for sure. It was out. And I didn't win the race, but I'd finished second to it, but I didn't really lose out on any points, didn't make any mistakes or whatever. But that was a real tough moment where you think, why am I here? Why am I doing this? And went to the last round in at Knockhill, and we were exactly tied on points. And it didn't matter if I was going to finish. If I had crashed and didn't finish, I was still going to finish second in the championship. If I beat Howard, I was going to win the championship. Or if he beat me, he would win the championship. Or if he crashed, it didn't matter. He was still going to finish second. There was nobody within the points close enough to do us any real harm. So it was just down to him and I. And as I said, with everything that was all going on, the guy that sponsored Howard was Jim Bald, and Dave Christie, the fellow that sponsored me, and there was a big group of people, and there was some of this only came to light after the event. But anyway, I started the race. Howard got away a long way in front of me. I got held up on the first lap. I think it was about a 15-lap race or something like that, and the first 5 laps didn't make any inroads into him at all. There was maybe about a 5-second gap between where he was and where I was, and we both run around about the same kind of speed. Nothing changed, and I can remember thinking to myself on the bike, and I had thought, well, if I crash, I'm still going to finish second, but if I don't crash, I've got to beat him, and I've got to take the win. There is no ifs or buts about it. And it was a bit of a, I used Douglas as a motivational tool for then, because I had thought, what would he have done? And I would have thought, well, he wouldn't be fanning around about here, and they would have just bloody sent it in at 100 miles an hour and saw the consequences. So that's what I did. So I think it took me about 3 laps to catch him, past him. And Howard said afterwards, he says, never ever in a million years they're going to catch you. He says, you passed me, he says, somewhere where I never expected you to overtake me. And he says, I wasn't going to live with you. So the fella that sponsored Howard had bought a whole load of champagne and all sorts to celebrate Howard's success. And fair play to him. He was crying and he handed me it over. Says, there you go. He said, you deserve that. And unbeknown to me, Davy Christie had put a sizable amount of money on the fact where he was standing at the side of the circuit after about lap 4, and somebody had said, oh, that's it, it's Howard's. And Davy's gone, no. He says, I bet it isn't. And the fella said, I bet it is. And they had exchanged a large sum of money. And do you have a figure, or it was into thousands.
Wow.
And back in the day, then that was a lot of money. And Davy at the end of the day gave me 500 quid. He says, there you go. He says, that's your win bonus for it. So if you go back to the early 1980s, I suppose that's like giving somebody 10 grand now.
Wow.
Where he had just done a deal with somebody at the side of the circuit. And it transpires that the elderly gentleman that he did that with was Johnny Ray's grandfather. Now, Jonathan Ray, who is now 5 times world superbike champion.
I recognise the name, yeah.
It was Jonathan Ray's grandfather that had to pay out to Davy Christie.
Wow.
So I thought, but yeah, that couple of seasons was real tough. And then, yeah, I think my brother eventually died 2 years after the accident, and my family didn't want anything to do with racing, and the support that was there then wasn't, and I was almost going against everything. With they didn't say don't do it, but they certainly didn't make things easy for me to race. So I did it on my own, but I was very, very fortunate because I had some very good friends round about me who I'm still very, very good friends with to this day. Ian Wilson, went to school with him. His son is now World Downhill Mountain Bike Championship. Reese Wilson.
I know the name. I'm trying to think if he's the one from around here.
Yeah, he does lots of training and stuff up around Innerleith, Peebles and whatever. So he's originally from Gordon. As I said, went to school with Ian, and as I said, again, there's a big long story about things that we could never ever write or mention that we did when we were younger.
I'm gonna have to get you all together for a reunion on one of these, and I just won't hit record, and then we'll just chat.
Yeah, I know.
I'll just sit here and listen.
Yeah, there'll be a few stories come out there. Yeah, Jimmy Shanks, who's still racing to this day. Now, Jimmy's in his 60s and still going quite well, but set himself up in business at Blink Bonnie Quarry. Jimmy helps quite a few of the young racers and things now coming through. Just a little bit of sponsorship on the quiet here and there. Helped Steve Kershaw with the sidecar. Steve Kershaw is now competing for World Championship status, multiple British champion winner. Wow. And as I said, Jimmy's helped him. And as I said, but we were all friends when we were younger, and we're still very good friends to this day. And I suppose sometimes we don't see one another or the group of us for several months at a time. But if we go back at Christmas or the middle of the summer or whatever it is, he said, we meet up, and it doesn't take very long to just carry on where we were left off. So the witty banter, good light-hearted piss taking and everything else, it doesn't take long to all spring back into life. Where Will, as we call him, Ian and things came to his fortune. I did a race there, I think 2017, just coming back on a CB 500, and as I said, he came there to help me, and it just was so easy because I didn't have to tell him what to do. He just naturally did it. He kind of knew what I was after and all the rest of it. So it was I was very, very lucky with the group of people that I had round about me at that time, because it really was a very, very difficult time.
No, quite rightly. And then, I mean, the way you speak about your brother and the way you've spoken about him for the past hour is more than a testament to the man he was. So I'm only jealous I didn't get to meet him, and then I could add both of you in the chat. But you've spoken highly enough.